Right, boom. Am I live? I'm live, goddammit. I'm black, baby. I'm black. Let me check my chat. Make sure everybody in the motherfucking hot. Looks like we on, baby. Yeah. Make sure everybody in the motherfucking. All right, we on. Let's see some motherfuckers start popping up in my chat. You know we moving the groove. I wait on you. I know y'all gonna be there. That's right. That's right. I'm gonna just sit back and chill. Tie my shit up. I let y'all come on in, y'all. Let y'all come on in. In the meantime, woo! Don't look too long. You know, I don't want y'all motherfuckers to become dizzy and fucking fall out there, bust your motherfucking head on something, nigga. Yeah, baby. We doing it big tonight, baby. I want all my family to come in. Y'all know how we do. Come on in, children. Come to the light. Come to the light. Come your ass on in. You been sitting out there in dark. See a king drink out of this. This my little cup. You see what I'm saying? See how I grabbed that motherfucker? I grabbed that motherfucker like one of them little baby McDonald cups. Where you at? Come on in. What we looking like? Wait a minute, hold up. Wait a minute. Hey, you can't be a gorilla unless you beat on your chest. Okay? Okay? I don't motherfucking apologize for that. You can't be a motherfucking gorilla unless you beat on your chest. So tonight, I beats my motherfucking chest. All right.
Toe tap and welcome.
Are you looking to take your music to the next level? Matrix Music Studio. Our expert team of sound engineers specializes in mixing, mastering, and production using the latest technology and techniques to give your music the professional edge it deserves. Whether you're looking to polish a single track or produce a full album, we've got you covered. Contact us today at 914-572-6078 or email us at matrixmusics@yahoo.com to learn more about our services and pricing. Let us help you take your music to the next level with Matrix Music Studio.
Kill the messenger, but you can't kill the message. And it is what it is. So I'm not going to do much talking until the video is finished this morning, family. But I'm going to show y'all Dr. Peggy ain't who she say she is. It's all a smoke screen argument that they sitting up there putting up there. As I told y'all before, this wasn't about Zyx. It had nothing to do with Zyx. And there's a reason why they got to smoke screen you like this. It's a reason why they got to misdirection you like this. So instead of me doing a live stream this morning, I'm going to use video proof to prove my point. And then we going to really get busy a lot later. With that being said, let me run this first salvo.
Will not be reopening its doors, at least for now. The North Carolina Charter Schools Review Board decided not to renew the charter for Children's Village Academy in Kinston. State officials say the school has until Wednesday to pay back $152,000 in federal grant money. The school has been open since 1997. Now, we did reach out to officials with the Children's Village Academy for comment, and we haven't heard back just yet. learn more tonight. A charter school in Kinston is closing. After a long hearing process, Children's Village Academy on Atkins Street was not given approval to renew their charter school. On your sides, Davis Supis is joining us now in the studio. So, Davis, what went into this decision?
Courtney, the North Carolina State Board of Education met today and they made the announcement. The decision was made on May 6th of this year, and after an appeal made by the school, a hearing took place, but unfortunately it was not enough to alter the decision.
The Charter School Review Board not to renew the charter of Children's Village Academy in Lenoir County.
28 years of tradition are coming to an end at Children's Village Academy.
The panel concurred with the decision of the CSRB on non-renewal of Children's Village Academy.
The announcement came after a meeting with the Charter Schools Review Board earlier in the week. A petition was started back in March to keep the school open by one concerned parent, saying that the school was, quote, a beacon of hope and opportunity for our community, serving students and consistently achieving high academic growth despite an economically disadvantaged population. Community members echoing the sentiment in comments on social media, saying the school is important for academic excellence, implementing teaching strategies, and meeting the diverse needs of all students. 9 on Your Side reached out to officials with the charter school and are currently waiting to hear back with more. Live in studio, Davis Supis, 9 on Your Side.
Davis, thank you.
Okay, we're back live. Jen, are you doing the introduction or no? Okay. Guys, we're started back.
We're going to jump right into Children's Village Academy. As a reminder, this school is up for renewal. You heard from the school yesterday. I'm sorry, not yesterday, last month. And we have some presentations from federal programs today and school business.
Good morning. I'm Susan Brigman. I'm the section chief for specialty programs in the Office of Federal Programs at DPI. And so one of my primary responsibilities is the daily oversight of the 21st Century Community Learning Centers grant, of which Children's Village has been a recipient. So on the next screen, you'll see the staff that handle the 21st Century Community Learning Center program across the state. You will hear from two of my staff members today. One is Wendy Buck. She is the program administrator assigned to Children's Village because she serves the Northeast and Southeast regions of North Carolina. And we also have Monica Pask, who is the fiscal monitor assigned to Children's Village. What we're going to be presenting to you today is some information on where they stand with us in regards to compliance with their most recent summer mini grant that they received from us this past summer. And just to give you a little bit of background about this particular grant so that you have a good frame of reference from when you are listening to the presentations from my colleagues, applicants that currently hold a 21st Century grant, so if you have a cohort 14, 15, or 16, they were eligible to apply for this competitive summer mini grant if they met the following criteria. So the applicant had to propose new programming by serving additional feeder schools and targeted students not currently being served by the applicant's existing 21st Century program. And so that means that any currently funded 21st Century organizations applying for this new funding cannot apply for duplicate funding for the same project and the same school sites. And so I wanted you to have that information as a preface before you hear the presentations from the fiscal monitor and the program administrator. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Wendy, and she's going to talk to you about the compliance concerns on the program side.
Good morning. As Susan said, I am Wendy. I actually reside in the Beaufort County area, and I do serve the CBA as a 21st Century program. So one of the things that we require when a program comes to us is called a basic program information sheet, and that's what you see here. This one is for the FY23 Summer Mini Grant, and it was approved by the state board. You'll see the date on this document is February 2nd of 2023, and the program dates here are 7/17 to 8/18. I'm just going to try to establish kind of some baseline information for you. This next slide shows you just the letter that went out to all grantees saying you're going to get a monitoring at some point during your program, and gave a range of dates. And this is the particular one that went out to CBA. This particular sheet is a revised basic program information sheet that is dated 5/23, and you'll see new dates for programming here, 6/26 to 7/28. What happens here is they have a cohort 15 as well, and that's why these timelines are a bit important. The summer programming dates for cohort 15 were set for 7/2 to 8/4. And that's what their basic program information sheet said in CCIP when we were looking at monitoring for the summer. Because one of the things we do look for is if there are two programs in place, are they serving separate students with the two pots of money? The summer programming dates, as I said before, had changed. And I actually require programs, if they change anything of significance, whether it's inside their program or if it's things like dates, we require them to do an amendment, and that amendment has to be approved before they can move forward with those changes. And it is approved both by myself and our division, our Office of Federal Programs staff. And that's what I just told you about this. When I was going through and actually looking at when I was going to monitor all my programs, because I had several to monitor over the summer, we had originally planned for August the 3rd to be the date that we went to CBA to actually do a monitoring. When I looked at the dates that had been changed, I had to change our monitoring from our original August the 3rd, which the program did not know that date until I was sending out the later document, because we just gave them a range. And then I had to move it to 7/27 so that it would meet their change dates that had not been approved. So we went on the day of 7/23, and there wasn't sufficient documentation to show compliance in all the areas. And so we set up a Google Drive to give them an opportunity to put in additional documentation so that they could show compliance for this program. And we established that deadline of 7/31. The next slide is just a screenshot of some of the folders that were in that Google Drive for them to complete information for. The next slide shows some excerpts from the CPMR. That's our report that we do for compliance for all of our programs. And you can see there that there were several strands and indicators that did have findings, which are things that must be corrected to be in compliance with the grant. And you can see there 1.2, 1.3 are the top ones. And then there's 2.3, 3.1, and 3.3. Those were the original findings that we had for the program. And I'll explain a little bit further. The next slide you see is actually where you see the documentation reviewed and the interview information. What we do is we go and we review documentation while we're on site. We also interview a number of people, including the program director, staff. We try to do some parents for our programs to see how they are feeling about how things are going. And you can see the results. We do take notes. Two of us go and visit, and that way one can be, talking with our person that we're interviewing, and the other can be taking notes for them. So you'll see some of the notes there that were in the official report. Same thing with the next screenshot. That's for 1.3. It talks about the program serving the projected number of students here for 1.3. 1.2 and 1.3 are basically looking at the students that are served and things such as that. The next slide, when we actually send out information, we send out an email, and this is a copy of an excerpt from one of the emails. You can see different, if you scroll up, you can see different colors of text there. I'm sorry, scroll down. Okay. Sorry. But here, this is an email from October 25th to Dr. Grady concerning getting some additional documentation. In order to keep myself from getting confused, I actually put text from different emails or different dates into different colors, because once you start going back and forth with a program, it's easy to get confused. So I try to color code things for myself. And in all of this documentation so far, we were unable to actually close some of the findings with the information that we had. One of those, if they may have some sign-in sheets as well to show some of those things, but those were not available from the program for this particular time. And so there were those compliance issues with some students being served and the county present on the same days. The other compliance issue that we were not able to clear was actually related to background checks for the program. And that's what 3.1 actually deals with. You'll see one of the items that we request and that we require are criminal background checks. And so you can see the notes there in the actual report. And on the next screen, and I apologize, I'm at the age I can see some things with my glasses and some things without. I refuse to get bifocals yet, so please just bear with me. So you can see in this next slide that as our program compliance is laid out, where we have our guidance. We put out guidance for every grant. It's very similar, but one of the things you can see highlighted in there is that criminal record checks must be completed and cleared for all new or existing employees, volunteers, or contractors prior to their interaction with children or handling of 21st century funds. And they have to be redone every so often. They expire at the end of the grant cycle. Their background check for our purposes expire. And that's generally every 3 years, because we have 3-year grants in our regular cohort. Summer mini grant is only just obviously for the summer. So going to the next slide, we received numerous background checks from CVA. They sent us probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 or so that I've gone through and looked at various times through various emails and the Google Drive, and then what they provided while we were on site. And the conclusion that I could come to were, you can see here, there are 5 people that are listed, and you can see most of the background checks were done after the programming was completed for the summer mini grant, which is clearly out of compliance. We had a couple that did have background checks. One was from August of 2021, which would be okay. And we had one from 11/27/2018, which would still be out of compliance. That would be too far back. So those are the things we were dealing with. So the conclusion of what I could come to close or could not resolve for this compliance is findings for 1.2, 1.3, which dealt with the student attendance, and 3.1, which dealt with the background checks. I looked through all the documentation. We issued the original report on 8/14 because we gave them some additional time to get some items into us in that Google Drive. And then I sent out emails requesting and receiving additional documentation on 9/6, 9/28, and 10/25. And so that's where we sit currently for the program, as we're still out of compliance for those 3 indicators. That's all that I
Can I
have.
ask a few questions, if I may?
Yes, sir.
And other board members as well. When you went and visited the school, you said you had to change the site visit date because they changed the program dates.
Yes, sir.
And changing those program dates, they did not have the authority to do that or approval to do that. What was the explanation provided to you as to why they changed the program dates without getting the approval?
I never received any explanation. I did let them know, actually, when I discovered it on the 18th of July, I did email Dr. Grady and told her, because the dates had been changed, that I would have to change the date of the monitoring, and it had been done without approval. Any explanation that I've received for anything is just that it was an oversight for various things. I don't remember specifically a reason for changing the program dates.
Okay. When you do the site visits, who do you typically meet with, and do you interact with board members at all in any of the compliance monitoring that you're doing?
Sometimes it depends, because what we do is we send out an agenda to the program. We always meet with the program director. That's our point person. And then we ask them to set up interviews with various stakeholders. And sometimes they do actually provide people on their board to meet with. In this particular case, unless those board members were also a staff member, then I would not have met with the board.
You indicated that there were a few people who the grant itself requires criminal background checks, and you found out that there were a few people, was it 2 or 3?
Yes, sir. There were let me go back and see if I can look specifically. There was basically 4 of the 5 that we interviewed that were out of compliance, and there was one that was that I could see that was
So
in
there were 4
compliance.
people who hadn't had their background check completed prior to engaging in the program that should have had the background check completed.
Yeah, in a timely manner,
And then
yes,
you
sir.
subsequently learned that then they did get the background check, but it was after the program was over.
Yes, sir.
Is there any follow-up to know whether or not what the results of those background checks would have been?
I did receive those, and I didn't see anything that were of great concern with those particular employees. So I did, I was just going by what was in the grant guidance for that particular thing.
Who are the people that, like, were these teachers? Were these staff members?
They're
Were these
staff
volunteers?
members. They're staff members. Mainly, they do interact with children, I believe. And they're various people. I don't remember exactly who was what, but most of them were staff members that interacted with students.
Because that just, to me, begs the question, if they were staff members, how did they not have background checks already? That's that condition.
That should be in board policy.
Not for you to answer. I'm just
Understand.
thinking out loud. Okay.
Understand.
So just, for stating it out loud. All these requirements that you reviewed were told to them up front.
Oh, yes, sir.
And so they, throughout the duration of the program, knew that these were going to be things that could be monitored and were explained right up front.
Yes, sir. We always do. We do actually RFP when people are applying for grants. We lay out the requirements then. And then we also do onboarding, and we go over literally step by step what the monitoring process will look like and what we are expecting to see.
Excellent. To your knowledge, were there any changes in the people that you trained up front? Was there any change in personnel from the initiation of the grant to the close of the grant?
In leadership, not to my knowledge. We typically don't train the entire staff unless that grantee would like for them to be on the training. We do them basically as webinars. So as many people as they would like could be in on the training, but no, Dr. Grady has been the program director for.
So from the beginning of it to the end of it, everybody knew up front what was required.
As far as I know, yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
So if they were serving students, part of this, one of the findings is that you had the students perhaps being paid for out of two different grants.
Yes, sir.
Has there been a request, or where's that stand? And do they owe the money back for the grant, or is that coming?
You will hear from Monica on the fiscal part of it. I deal mainly with the programmatic. I only do a little bit with the fiscal, so
Thank you.
she'll provide you further details with that.
Any other questions right now for board members?
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Monica Pask, and I am a fiscal monitor in the Office of Federal Programs. I was assigned to fiscally monitor Children's Village Academy's summer mini grant, and I just want to start off with a fiscal timeline. One thing that's not on this slide, they did receive notification of a fiscal monitoring back in May that it would be completed sometime throughout the summer. The actual review commenced the week of September 18th. The initial review was just for July expenditures only. And after what the review entails, we're just looking at their documentation, invoices, payments, and looking at their budgets, making sure that everything's necessary, reasonable, and allowable. So after I reviewed that initially, I sent 2 follow-up letters, one on October 16th, another one on November 14th, because there was additional information, additional documentation that was required to clarify some of the expenditures. And findings with question costs letter did go out on December 1st, so just about 2 weeks ago, with question costs of $287,000. Over $287,000. They do have an additional opportunity to either submit for repayment or additional documentation that can clear up any of these items. That due date is December 14th. So after my 3 reviews, after receiving additional documentation, the findings that were communicated to Children's Village Academy, there were 7 findings, which, like I said, including question costs of $287,000. Those question costs were surrounding time and effort documentation, supplanting cohort 15, and Children's Village Academy charter school operations with summer mini grant funds, unapproved contracts, and conflict of interest concerns, and then unallowable costs and expenditures not adequately documented. And then a final finding was a failure to establish and maintain effective internal control over the federal award. I'm just going to go through the findings and more specifically. So the insufficient and inconsistent time and effort documentation. I think one of the key things here is that this was a review of the summer mini grant. However, they also have a cohort 15 grant that they were to run a summer program for. And then, of course, they also have their Children's Village Academy charter school. So they have numerous pots of fundings, and I need to make sure that, you know, the expenditures were for the summer mini grant, which time and effort documentation was a key issue in that regard. Excessive salaries was another issue with time and effort. Custodial services charged a summer mini grant was over $29,000. We had one custodian receiving over $17,000 in gross wages for the period of July to September. And then we had a combo custodian driver receiving over $15,000 in gross wages for July, just 2 months, July and August. So that was, they submitted timesheets that just had some in and out. They were like Excel timesheets that had some in and out times on them, but no duties. I couldn't necessarily allocate those specifically to summer mini grant. So additional documentation was requested for them to prove that these duties were for summer mini grant. The documentation that was provided was, I mean, I do question the veracity of them. It does seem that just because of the time in and out times, and they were odd minutes, they were, it seemed like they were copied and pasted across several different employees. So it was requested to explain some of that information. So that was finding number one. Finding number two, contracted services and conflict of interest concerns. Part of the 21st Century program, we do require that contracted services, they do upload a contract for review and approval in CCIP. So they had 7 unapproved contracts. There were 3 related party transactions with red flag indicators. These were invoices that were submitted by individuals, not vendors or suppliers of items of the things that were listed on these invoices. They invoiced for the same supplies and materials using the same item numbers. So we have there 3 invoices, some of the items that were on there. And again, this is for the summer mini grant that's to serve 100 students. And just in these 3 invoices, we bought 400 t-shirts, 300 backpacks, and you know, those supplies were on different invoices. And again, these were individuals and they were related party transactions, meaning that they were somehow connected to the other staff at the school. So we also
3 different individuals?
Yes, 3 different individuals that have a connection to other staff at the school. And there were other potential conflict of interest concerns that were needing additional explanation or disclosure from those unapproved contracts.
Can you explain that a little further? Like, what was the conflict?
They just seem to have a connection with the person that's responsible for purchasing, may have had connections with choosing that, paying those people. So there was just some uncertainty over the purchases that required additional documentation.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Finding number 3 was supplanting cohort 15 and charter Children's Village Academy charter operations with summer mini grant funds. I mentioned that previously. The programming dates for summer mini grant were June 26th through July 28th. And we have a chart there of items that were purchased using summer mini grant funds. However, these purchases are for curricular resources and items that were purchased after the summer mini grant was over. So these are not applicable to the summer mini grant funding. However, they were charged to the summer mini grant. And that's approximately $75,000 there. Our fourth finding, unallowable costs and expenditures not adequately documented. There were just some expenditures that were not allowable for the summer mini grant. Construction projects are not allowable. There were some late fees for Canon copiers that were charged to the grant. Family Dollar, some personal hygiene items that would not be attributed, be able to be charged to the summer mini grant. And then there was inadequate, questionable documentation for Staples. They did have since submitted some documentation for Staples, but it was purchased after the summer mini grant and was purchased in the documentation that they submitted was for August. So these would be considered unallowable. And then our last two slides for the findings is really speaks to the failure to establish and maintain effective internal control over the federal award. The first slide really speaks to the organization, the overall organization. For these things, these previous findings to take place, there's limited oversight by the CVA Board of Directors. The fiscal officer has authority to both approve and pay invoices. They use a signature stamp to process check payments. There's no evidence on their documentation of a requisition purchasing and approval process. So again, these are things that were evident through review of the documentation and just are indicators that there's failure to establish a strong internal and control environment. The second slide for findings 5 through 7, that really speaks more to some of the requirements for the 21st century program that we have in our grant guidance, as well as, Wendy mentioned that we do webinars, and so we do training on what are the requirements for 21st century, and they had several inadequate procedures to comply with those.
Can we pause there a second?
Sure.
I'd like to go back. Thank you for all this. I'd like to go back to the first finding number 1.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned as a custodian who received over $17,000 in wages from July to September, and custodian driver 15,000 gross wages. Is that two different people, or is that one person?
That is two different people.
Okay. Do you have the names of those people? Were they staff members? Were they contractors?
They're staff members on staff. They receive a W-2 so they're employed by the academy. And some of it could have been attributable. Some of their wages could have, they had like, I think 9,000 budgeted for summer custodial services, which should have been plenty to cover a 1-month program. However, I don't know. That's part of the problem is we don't know what they were doing during the times that were reported. Summer does sometimes have a complete cleaning of the campus, but it can't be attributable to summer mini grant.
But you have the names of the people who were paid.
Yes.
Okay.
We require timesheets, time and effort to be submitted, especially in this situation where we know there's different pots of funding. We need to make sure that what is being charged to the grant is attributable to the summer mini grant. And, obviously for amounts like this, we would request additional explanation, and it wouldn't be considered allowable.
So findings 3 and 4 really, finding 3 is just coding things to the grant that you can't code to the grant, right? or is out of date, excuse me. And then finding 4 is just coding things to the grant that even if these expenses are legitimate, you can't apply the expense to the grant.
Mhm.
Do you know, do they have a dedicated business financial officer on staff?
Yeah, I was wondering if they have a third-party vendor or for
They have
finances.
they do have a fiscal officer. She is a part-time employee. But that is definitely something that was uncovered during the review that,
And do you know if they work with any outside financial support groups?
they have a third-party charter school that processes the checks. You know, the fiscal officer is sending packets to her, they're cutting the checks, and then,
That's common practice.
yeah.
But is the fiscal officer is someone different than the head of the school principal?
Correct. Mhm.
But
Maybe-
part-time.
Yes.
I don't know why that's, if they have a third-party vendor, I would, I mean, I guess just thinking out loud, I mean, who, wouldn't they know the codes to use and know that this money shouldn't be spent that?
I think it's the fiscal officer that is making the determination of where things are coded. I'm not 100% certain of the interaction between the fiscal officer and the CPA that handles their check processing.
Yeah, I think it'd be a balance. I think, you know, I'll just use my school as an example. If my fiscal officer miscoded something, my back end financial would
Right.
presumably would catch it, right?
Hello, Shirley McFadden. I just wanted to jump in just to give some context here. I definitely agree with everything she said. We will present our financial stuff this afternoon, so we've seen all of the same things, part-time. I'm not even sure you call her a part-time finance officer. I'm not sure how many hours she's even present on campus at all. They do use a third-party accounting firm, which is on the coast. So they're sending an invoice inventory packet, identifying the source of funds that they want to use to the actual accountant. The accountant records the accounting transaction, cuts the check, mails the checks back to the school, where the finance officer then reviews each one of those checks and stamps it with the board member signature to send out. So there are definitely concerns around it. And the biggest thing I wanted to make sure was stated was we do not encourage an over-reliance on those third parties, that somebody internally should understand the allowability and the uses. While to your point, Mr. Friend, there may be some mutual back and forth there in discussion and some reliability, that ultimately we always tell the school districts, you are ultimately responsible for the choices you're making here. Even if your accountant person has suggested that you put it in a different pot, that they need to understand the rules and regulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Before we move on to the next part of your presentation, I'm just curious, when presented all of this information that you've just presented to us, what was the reaction from the school?
So the first 2 times that we submitted a letter to them requesting additional documentation, we haven't been able to resolve it, so limited additional documentation has been received. Nobody has gone on record stating or explaining any of these as of yet. Of course, they do have until December 14th to provide any.
Eager to jump to the microphone.
You got some folks who are ready to
I'm
jump
sorry.
in.
Just because we've, crossed paths this entire time. I've been on the phone along with our legal counsel and their attorneys, and their attorney, the only comment that I know I've heard, since she hasn't heard any, was a question back to me asking, are you really questioning that amount of money? So I do think that there is a response to the amount of That's just the board member, or excuse me, the attorney representing the board asking us, was that the amount, to which I responded, that's the question cost presented by our federal program team, and any question and discussions needs to be brought back to that organization. But wanted to share that at least they were aware, and their attorney did at least make comment when we met about what we were doing on our side of the house.
Hi, I'm Jessica Jones, Executive Principal at CVA, and I'm here today to hear this report as well as to provide any feedback that I can in absence of my board members. To answer the question of what is the reaction, a lot of these things that have come out through this thorough investigation by both Ms. McFadden and 21st Century is a first here run. A lot of these things that have been uncovered was not the board nor myself were aware of some of these transactions or types of things, procedures that were going on to pass approval for them. So as we get through this investigation and look into the findings, we are preparing a response. I've spoken with Ms. Monica last week myself, and working with the program director, board members, and finance director to get a response for some of these costs that they're asking for back for the program.
Thank you for that. Thank you for
Appreciate that.
sharing that and for being here today as well. We'll allow them to continue the presentation. There might be time this afternoon. We do have some questions for you. Yeah.
I think this is where we were.
Sorry, didn't mean to get you off track there.
Slide 29, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. This is just historical perspective of Children's Village Academies with 21st Century specifically. So they have been a subgrantee since fiscal year 17. And just looking at some of the historical data of question costs and findings that they've had over the years. So in conclusion.
Could you go back to that?
So 24 is overspent.
Well, am I right in that there were findings in 2020, 21, and 22 as well, those fiscal years?
Correct. There were findings and question costs, and I kind of have a key of like what some of the issues, some of them are repeated issues. I know, for example, they continue to charge late fees to the grant for their Canon copiers. That has been a consistent issue. They've been given findings for it, yet it still happened this summer. I was not the this was the first time I've monitored Children's Village Academy, so I don't have a lot of specific history for these previous monitorings. But just going through the letters that were sent out and the reconciliations, this is some of the information that I was able to pull out.
So let me ask this. This is a historical perspective. If you looked across grantees, is this unusual?
I would say yes. It's not, subgrantees, they do have question costs, but to this magnitude, typically, no. But I do want to speak to the fiscal year 24. That is, like, they do have a cohort 15 grant that would also be in fiscal year 24. They have not yet been approved. So technically they should not be spending money from cohort 15 yet. And yes, they currently have overspent and are spending, but because it is a reimbursement grant.
So they're overspent for money they haven't received yet?
Yeah, say that one more time.
So they have to do a continuation application each of the subsequent 2 years of the grant. In that process, we are currently in that process, and they have not been approved for cohort 15 for this year. Some of the concerns are over contracts and, you know, there hasn't really been a lot of back and forth with the academy at this time, I think, because of the focus we're focusing on this. But it is a reimbursement grant. You know, they could continue operating. I mean, subgrantees do continue operating before they're approved, but they are not to submit for reimbursement or drawdown until they have that approval from our office.
So if approved, if I'm reading this chart correctly, in fiscal year 2024, this $299,000, that's what they would potentially be approved for?
Actually, that $299,000, that was their summer mini grant award. That was just their award for summer mini grant. Because they have not been approved for cohort 15, there has been no allotment in fiscal year 24 for cohort 15. Their cohort 15 award would be an additional $400,000 to run their cohort 15 year-round and summer program.
These excessive custodial staff, have you determined whether anybody on a custodial staff is related to either a board member or an employee of the school or a supervisor of the school? Have you guys looked into that, or you don't have any idea if that's the case?
I have looked at it. I haven't found a connection. I haven't found a connection between leadership at the academy. I don't know the reason for it.
Thank you for being more direct than I was. That's why I was asking for the name. I'm curious as to if there is a connection.
Can I clarify something?
Sure, sounds
You mentioned that
You might want to ask that question.
the custodian is a W-2 employee, so he or she is employed from the school year-round.
Year-round.
And they're allocating X amount of costs of the salary to be used during the mini grant, which might be sort of appropriate because there are more
Right.
students in the building in July than there normally would have been.
Mhm.
But the amount was what triggered a fund.
Right. Yes.
Excuse me, I have a question. Is that okay? Is this appropriate time?
Yes, yeah, go ahead, Rita.
This is Rita Hare. You may have already said this, but just wondering if all of the misallocated or unapproved expenses all occurred from the same checking account. There's just one account. The one that you mentioned was stamp signatured.
Yes. I do believe that they're all from the same checking account.
And to your knowledge, there are no other checking accounts for the school?
I don't know about other checking accounts. I only know about the checking account because they do have to provide, again, since it is a reimbursement grant, they do have to provide evidence that it has been paid. So I do have seen bank statements, and it's only for the one account, but I don't know what any other accounts that they may have.
Okay, thank you.
Do their internal controls, did you notice, require two signatures on a check?
Their policies and procedures do state that there will be two signatures,
And one of them is
especially
a
if they're.
What I'm hearing you say, so I'm seeing the answer is yes, but it's one of the signatures is a
Stamp
stamp.
from a board
So
member.
I
All right, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can I be heard? Can I be heard? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Press 1 if you can hear me. Okay, family, it seems that the video has cut off. I'm going to come back later on with part 2 of the video. I'm going to get in contact with somebody and get them to re-up that video real quick. But later on today, I'm gonna finish playing this and I'm gonna continue to come with the facts. It's facts that break backs. Everybody else on there, everybody else just talking. We not talking, we showing you. This wasn't about tearing down his school. But at the same time, when you start name calling and all these empty feelings and shit that I'm hearing, hey, listen, y'all deal with it. Y'all not arguing with me at this point. And if he did say he knew what she was going through, why would you want to work with somebody when dealing with children that doesn't follow simple business procedures? That means they could put you up. They could put you up for danger. So don't try and miss me with the narrative of you just working with her son. Nah, that ain't what you said. That's a misdirection. What you stated was you was working with Dr. Peggy Carr. Where the money at? Where the money at? Because we got more. I got more. I got more. And I'm going to continue. Once you started name calling, hey, man, I took the gloves off. The gloves is off now. The gloves are off. So let me get with, what's it called? Someone real quick. Let me call somebody up real quick to get this back up because I'm in my car right now. I don't know why it went down, but yeah, like I said, I don't know why the video went down, but here, I'll get it back up in a second. As a matter of fact, we'll be back with part 2 of the video later on. We'll just be back with part 2 because I just don't have the time, guys. I got to get in here and start work within the next 8 minutes. So with that being said, man, as y'all can see, it's a lot of shit that y'all finna learn about what she did. It's a lot of shit that she's done. That's why I said it's everybody else trying to put Q in front of this shit. I don't really care how we feel about it. The facts is the facts. You understand what I'm saying? Talking about motive. Oh well. That's right. Scamming season. Scamming season is over. Oh, that's funny. Scamming season is over. That's a good one. That's a good one. I like that one. I like that. When he says scamming season is over. People said they tired of this shit. They tired of these motherfuckers sitting up there coming around talking about they doing something. Said I'm sick of it. All right, family, man, I'm getting ready to shut it down. I'll be back.